Well, as you saw in one of the previous videos, that I had to get a repair done because a site was dropping out. And they came by, spent a few hours till it got dark, testing and replacing wires. Now, after I got back to my RV doing some tests of my own, I did see a little improvement in the pings and the speed. I'm still getting the same speed, but it's not fluctuating as it once did. Like if you're supposed to have 200 and you do a test, it hits 200, 205, maybe 195. Consistently, somewhere 195 to 205 every time. Now, it used to say if I had 200, it was not doing that. It would go 205, 208, and then sometimes it wouldn't get past 125. 2 or 3 tests back to back, 125, 130. And then all of a sudden I'd do a fourth one and then it'll jump up to 200. Well, it's not doing that now. It's between that 195 and 205. If that's the speed I had, that's the kind of range it's doing. But I got 300, but I'm not going to get 300 because not everything in the EdgeRouter X is offloaded, so the processor cannot process the maximum speed through it. Now, if I turn that off, I've done that on an EdgeRouter X before in the studio. I turn all that on, put it into WISP software, and I get roughly about 225 maximum. Now, when I turn all that off and just set it up and not put it in WISP and don't turn on traffic shaping and all that stuff to run a WISP, I get the same thing coming out of the EdgeRouter X that I do that's actually feeding the EdgeRouter X. But since they have replaced that one wire that's never been replaced, it's more consistent and the pings are lower. Usually before all this, it's been in like 30s and 40s, and now it's hitting like 22 and 21. It stays in the 20s, and every now and then it'll jump up 35, then kind of float out at hang out around 27, 28, and every now and then it'll bounce up in a 30. Something else I thought about too over the time of getting this issue fixed, when the supervisor came out with one of the technicians, they replaced the drop from the pole to the bump pole at the house. They put a tester on it before, and they said somewhere around 100 and some feet down the line from the main tap at the road says the wire is bad. He never confirmed where on that wire, because it ran from the pole, from the tap, over to a bump pole, is what they refer to as just another telephone pole. And then it goes over to the home. Well, this one actually goes to another little bump pole, which has the power meter and a breaker box on it. Now, when it goes to that pole, it goes down that pole, and then it goes underground for 5-6 feet, then comes up on the side of the home and goes in their box. Now, when he tested it and said it was 107, 108 or whatever, somewhere like that, he said, somewhere, he said, I think he said something like 103 to 120 feet, somewhere in there, it is indicating that the wire is faulty. Well, he took the wire from the tap to the bump pole, and from there to the little bump pole, and as it went down, with the barrel connector, he replaced all that. And he replaced everything from the box to my box where the modem was at that time. But that wire that was under the ground was not replaced. Is that where the fault was when he done the testing, and he just assumed that it was in the drop that goes from point A to point B? He didn't replace really the whole drop, because part of that drop, it went underground. He didn't replace it. And when the technician this time, he had his phone looking in some app that shows him all the statistics of the percentage of upstream, downstream, and everything else that it shows in there, whatever that may be. I never had the privilege to look or ask. But he was concerned about the downstream, and other technicians were saying that as well. He said everything looks good, but the downstream seems to be not where it should be. He said it's just not right. Then he proceeded to replace that wire. I said, yeah. I said, everything's been replaced. The drop's been replaced 3 times. I said, but this part of the drop to the splitter, from the second bump pole to the box where the splitter is, has never been changed since I've had service here. But I've had this issue ever since I've been here. And the customer, or not the customer, but the homeowner, said they've been having that same kind of issue even before I got there. And I asked him, I said, if that wire in the ground is letting moisture or whatever get in and shorten out, even though it's supposed to be gel filled, but it's been there for I don't know how many years, would it make the modem just reboot? He said, oh, definitely, it would definitely reboot. He said, if you short that wire out, it will make that modem reboot. That's just a safety thing. It thinks something's wrong, so it will reboot itself. I'm like, okay. Now he proceeded to take that wire out of the ground. He physically slid it through his hand, like he was looking at it. He was just sitting right in front of his face and just sliding it, taking his glove and just getting the dirt off and just slide it and see if he feels anything, looks at it one end to the other. He didn't just slide his hand across like, no, I don't feel nothing. He actually physically looked at every bit of it and felt it sliding through his hand, be sure there's nothing. He said, well, there's no physical evidence this wire's bad, but I'm going to replace it anyway. He said, because it hasn't been replaced and everything else has, which that's the way it should be. When you replace a drop, you should replace it from point A to point B, but it's been replaced three times. And neither one of them times that wire got replaced. It's always been there. It's never been replaced when the drop has been replaced 3 times since I've been there. Maybe that was the issue. It may have had a little small crack in it. But I didn't see any signs of it when I looked at it. I monitored the droppage, like when it rained real heavy, and see if moisture, just because about that one wire that was in the ground, if that was the issue, if weather, if it was too hot, when it gets real cold, when it gets real windy, the wires dangling and moving and whatever. But when it rained real hard for like a whole day, sometimes it dropped out, sometimes it didn't. It wasn't consistent, so I can see a pattern. So I couldn't confirm that, yeah, hey, every time it rains, man, it seems like it just starts acting up. I couldn't say that because I couldn't confirm it. But he replaced the wire and put a new one, exact same size and all, right back down in there. And so far, it has not dropped out. But it does that same thing when all the other technicians change things out. Change the modem, change the drop, change the wire from the splitter to the modem. It'll run for, I think, usually at least 3 days. That's the shortest time before it started acting up. Now the longest was about 3 months. It was 2.5 months at least before it started acting up. There's no pattern of when that it's going to start acting up again. So only time will tell if it's going to act up, or did this technician actually resolve the issue. This is the same technician. When he drove up, I'm like, I know this one. He looked familiar. I just couldn't place him where. But all the other technicians, I know where I know him from when they come up again. But this one, I'm like, I know I've seen him, but I just couldn't place where. He is the one that fixed the issue at the other RV park I had where I ran fiber. I told him everything that was done there. And I said, the drop's been replaced, the wire, the wire's been replaced, the splitter's been replaced, and blah, blah, and all that. I said, the only thing that I see that they keep doing and not taking something out of the equation is the tap they put it in. I said, they keep screwing it in the same hole. He said, well, let's see if we can change that. See if there's another tap I can actually run the wire to that's not too far away, and see if maybe that's the issue. And that's exactly what he did. He went on the other side of the house to the next power pole and put it in that tap. It's been working ever since. That's the one where I have to go back and finish burying it, where in one of my previous videos you saw me digging a trench underneath a motorcycle driveway. Now I got to go dig a trench all the way around and not hit my fiber line I got in the ground, get it all the way buried to the box on the side of the home. So far it has not dropped out, and it's been 2.5, 3 weeks. And this site here that just got repaired yesterday had the same similarities of dropping out just periodically. So maybe it's not the tap, because he went up on the pole and checked the readings. He said everything is perfect up there. He said it's just great readings. He says better readings than I thought I would get. So he said, I don't think there's any issue up there. He said the number is supposed to be between here and here, and he said they're just about perfect in the middle. And when he checked the modem connection, when he unscrewed the coax cable from the modem inside the home and put his meter on it, he said he was getting the same readings now. He did it outside and he was not getting quite right, and then he replaced that wire, and when he got inside he had the same readings that he had up on the pole. So he, that telling him that the line, the drop all the way from pole to the modem is okay. And he opened up the app again that he uses. He said now the upstream looks fine. So over the time that it took him to go up on the pole and test it, screw it back in, put the ladder up, then go inside, and after that wire's been replaced, seems like that perhaps have resolved the issue, but only time will tell if it has or not. But he could not put in a report to get a bucket truck to come out, because he said everything is in the range more than he expected it to be, since we're on the tail end of the line in that area. He said he wished all of them would have that kind of readings everywhere. I said okay. So we just let it go and see if that was the issue, if it's that wire that was the issue. So that's all we can do. But hopefully that was the issue. That was just shorting out or something and making the the modem reboot. But we will see. Thank you, and consider subscribe, like, and share. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.